So welcome everybody to the second in the series of the Bell Integration AI First videocasts. And today is all about AI's impact on cybersecurity. And I've got a couple of guests to talk to today. The first is Rob Forde. Rob is the head of our security services here at Bell Integration. And I've also got Belal Asad, who's our security operations center manager here at Bell. And welcome both of you, and thank you for joining me here today. So I'd like to start really with exploring some of the risk and threat landscapes. And in particular, I'd like to understand how you guys see AI changing the nature and scale of cyber risk for enterprises over the next few years. And where should executive teams focus their attention right now?
It's an interesting question. And I think the way I look at this is that I think for executive teams, I'll be being brutally honest, I think there's a bit of one of the biggest misconceptions is that AI creates or has created an entirely new cyber risk landscape. And in reality, that's not true. All that we're seeing is that AI is accelerating and amplifying risks that already exist from a cyber perspective. So the challenge, or one of the challenges, is that it's doing it at a scale and the speed that we've never encountered before. So from an attacker perspective, what AI has done is it's dramatically lowered the barrier of entry effectively. So activities that once used to require highly skilled cyber criminals, such as phishing campaigns or social engineering or malware development or reconnaissance and so on, all of that can now be automated and personalized at scale. So where we used to see, one generic phishing email that was sent to 10,000 people, attackers can now generate 10,000 emails, for example, 10,000 highly convincing personalized messages in a matter of minutes. And where we used to see groups of 15 or 20 people being required to deliver this type of attack, we're now seeing it being done by one or two individuals. So the upshot and the result of that is basically more attacks targeting more organizations with greater sophistication. And at the same time, we've got the flip side of AI, which is organizations rapidly adopting AI themselves internally. Employees are uploading data into tools. Developers are embedding AI in applications. This is touching everybody. My other half works in finance, for example, and she lives in Excel, quite literally. And she was telling me the other day that she's developed her first agent. So that's the level of adoption that a lot of businesses are really taking on it. And that obviously creates a whole new category of risk around things like data leakage and governance and compliance and intellectual property protection and also AI model security. So what we see is that lots of organizations are embarking on AI projects faster than they've established the controls around it to manage it. And they're now either playing catch up or things stall or things get out of control in terms of not having those guardrails in place. So that's one area. The other major shift is operational. So it enables attackers to do things quicker once they've gained access. So they can automate research, they can identify weaknesses quicker, and they can potentially accelerate that progression from initial compromise to business impact. So that means organizations and people like Belal have less time to detect and respond. And Belal will talk about how we're challenging working on that in a few minutes. So where should executives focus? Firstly, on governance before technology. That's really important. So many boards are asking, what AI tools should we be using? I think the better question there is, how do we govern AI use across the organization? So understand where it's being used, what data is exposed, who has access, etc., those kinds of basics. So that's the first part, I would say. Secondly, focus on data security. AI is fundamentally powered by data. It's something we're going to talk about more. And if you don't know where your sensitive information is or who has access to it and so on, how it's being shared, then your AI risk exposure is difficult to manage ultimately. So you need to put those guardrails in place, things like data loss prevention, data classification, governance across the environment, etc. And then lastly, when I'm having these conversations, I talk about cyber resilience a lot. There's a big shift from cyber risk for executives to cyber resilience. So how can I recover my business in the event of an incident? So make sure that you continue that investment in cyber resilience. AI will help attackers, but it will also help defenders, right? So the organizations that succeed here will be the ones that basically get the best use out of AI for their internal teams or their partners, how their partners are using that from a defender perspective. Those that use it to help them recover quicker and maintain trust once incidents occur. So yeah, that would be my take on that question.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, that's really interesting that you talk about lowering the barrier of entry from a skills point of view, and also this notion that efficiency's been improved for those rogue actors in exactly the same way as AI is improving the efficiency of all of us. And the governance element's quite interesting, and that brings me on, I guess, to my next point, which is we see AI becoming much more integrated into both products and security operations, and what governance and leadership decisions become most important to reflect that.
So again, it's another interesting one. So organizations like ourselves, we're providers of managed services, right? But we're also consumers of AI internally. So there's many sides, opportunities, challenges, as it were, that are presented by this. So I'll cover one of the opportunity side of things that you just talked about, and what this presents and how we're dealing with it from an AI security perspective. So if I look at products, and Belal can talk in a minute to security operations, but if I look at products, our clients' development of products, our own development of internal AI products and tooling and so on, there's effectively a life cycle. So you have to think about these things in terms of how they're developed, how they're how they're going to operate and integrate into the business in future. And as such, there's an AI development life cycle, which there's no standards applied around this yet, but generally you can break this down into a number of different chunks. And I'm going to use 3 of those chunks now to describe how we are tackling the security challenges in each one of those different areas of the life cycle. Because like I said, it's not something you just do at this, once and you fix everything. There's different phases of development and integration and, maturity, ultimately, where you have to be able to, where your focus from a security perspective shifts slightly, let's just say. So if I break that life cycle down into 3 very crude initial phases, or let's say phases, it will be a design phase, or a plan or design phase. There's a development phase or a build phase, and there's a deploy phase or operate or run or whatever you want to call it. And like I said, the security shift will slightly shift from an AI perspective in terms of how we work with our clients in those areas and the type of help that we provide to our clients and our internal teams. So if I look at design, during that design phase, we need to be thinking about things like AI security testing and validation. So we want to be ensuring that tools are developed within policy, within boundaries, within guide rails. There's no shadow AI infections going on that are bleeding into code, or the adoption of models that aren't policy, policed internally or allowed even. So there's those kinds of things during that particular design phase of a project. Then during develop, that security focus might shift to, okay, we've got something that we've developed. Now we need to ensure that it's robust. So we should be applying penetration testing methodologies to this, or integrating this into our security testing models for tools that are already deployed and are not in development. So again, you're thinking about that life cycle. And then during deployment and run or operate, again, it shifts to threat monitoring, red teaming. So I'm going to actually test this using real world adversary techniques, runtime protection, so that I can ensure that it's not being abused by a threat actor and used in a way that it shouldn't be, or it wasn't designed to be used. So there's no priority over those. They all have a level of importance from a product development perspective. I wouldn't say that one's more important than the other. What we need to do, and our value to our clients in that area, is basically pointing out where we can help them, elevating their maturity in any of those areas to cover any perceived gaps that might introduce threats or risks or problems to the business further down the line, which may be exploited in the area that Belal can talk about from a security operations perspective.
Thanks, Rob. So as Rob has covered the dev life cycle and the offensive side of the AI governance and etc. etc. So let me close on the operation side, because that's where the governance gets tested in real time. When AI is making or recommending response decisions to SOC, accountability cannot be delegated to a model. Actually, it goes up to a named human who owns the outcome. Let's say the head of security services or CISO, and the top person who actually accountable for any outcome in terms of security services or security decisions. So the most important decision is defining the boundary or the decision boundary for the machine itself. So what does that mean? Actually, it means that what the AI is allowed to action autonomously versus what must be escalated to a human being. So the test here is simple: never let autonomy out on, and explainability. The moment you cannot explain why the system acted, is undermining the resilience, not strengthening it, and you're basically losing your resilience in AI and using AI at all.
On a more positive side, where can AI generally give security teams and businesses a defensible advantage? And related to that, how should executives think about the return on investment of investing in AI-enabled security?
I will take this question. So the genuine defensible advantages is machine speed response to a machine speed attacks. And also not only that, and observing the raising alert volume without raising the head count of people or analysts who is monitoring and watching all of these things. So AI earns its place in three measurable ways. So it's triage, correlation, and the cut of MTTRs, what we mean the mean time to response. So automation that removes analyst toil, and capacity that scales the attack volume instead of the hiring. So when you talk about the ROIs, so we don't think about the return of investment on license or model sophistication, but we think about it, they should measure it into reducing the MTTRs, the mean time to respond to a specific and a real attack. Also, the analyst hours, so the work hours and the efforts they're putting in, that retain to a higher value and a higher valued work, and also the most the most volume alert on attack that comes to a system or comes to a specific organization, that will be observed by using these AI models. So I will close this answer with a very simple sentence, which says, if an AI investment cannot be tied to one of those outcomes, it's a science project and not control. And what we're looking for is a control.
Now, our organization here at Bell, we've gone AI first, and of course, so have the attackers. And with frontier class models like Mythos and a tsunami of new vulnerabilities heading at defenders faster than anybody can patch them, how has that changed the threat that our clients face? And how are we using AI within our own security operations center to fight back at machine speed?
But it's an excellent question here, because this is what the most people are really looking into, how this can work. I'll start the answer to this question, by a very simple example from a CEO of a cybersecurity company in the Middle East. He was surprised that we may use AI to replace the level 1 analyst and not even missing a single attack. The response to that is basically, for our clients, the threat has changed in tempo, not just the type. So as you mentioned, with the mythos, the mythos and the tsunami of the vulnerabilities and attacks, that gives the attacker faster reconnaissance, faster exploit developments, and also that create and generate a tsunami of vulnerabilities, arriving the attackers quicker to the system. And when we only relies on the SOC that has only human being, we definitely gonna miss the genuine attacks and genuine alerts behind the massive amount of alerts and attacks and traffic that's going to be generated to our system and to our environments. Because we're not thinking about specific endpoint, we're not thinking about specific cloud infrastructure or specific server. We are thinking now and looking into a massive amount of Internet of Things devices, a massive amount of tenants and interconnection devices and service as and systems and services that all connected together into one system, one environment. And each single of these continent is producing and generating massive amount of traffic, of data, and all of these traffic and data, they can generate massive amount of alerts, even if they were genuine, but that's still generating an alert. This amount of volume is actually burying the analysts, not making them able or possible to actually see the genuine or figure out the genuine attack before it's actually happened. So inside the SOC, we actually fight machine speed with a machine speed. The agentic AI handling the bulk of tier 1 triage. So we're not removing a human being from the life cycle. We're not removing the human analysts from how we process the data, how we process the dealing with the incidents that comes to us. So only the first triage, the agentic AI will take the alert, take the incident, analyze it, put it in a nice way, create a ticket, and also alert the analyst, the human analyst, if this ticket is like a P1 is a high priority. And all of this actually happens in less than 2 to 3 minutes, which saves us a lot to protect an organization, to protect the environment before any massive involvement or any massive attack hit or continue hitting that specific organization.
I'll just add a little bit of additional context or comments to that question in terms of the strategy from a Bell perspective, and our thinking around how we can ultimately help our clients out in this area and so on. So part of our thinking, when developing this strategy for AI security was around the life cycle that I've already mentioned, but also around cyber resilience. So as AI becomes more integrated into strategic business operations and plans and development plans and so on, we need to make sure that organizations are taking the right steps and considerations in terms of recovery for utilization in the event of incidents and so on. So we've been trying to basically ensure that we can provide advisory services and managed security services that provide that guidance and coverage during that AI security and governance development perspective and life cycle. So I think I've mentioned this earlier, but AI is ultimately powered by data. And one of the things that we want to try and avoid is that bad data in, bad data out scenario. So good AI implementation, in my experience, starts with good data governance. From an advisory perspective, we are primarily helping our clients with data transformation and data and AI security governance and compliance type of activities. So transformation is in readiness for that move to AI or the adoption of AI. So making sure that the data is governed properly, that we have the right security policies in place before we're introducing the additional risks that AI brings with it. Then there's the development of those governance standards, the guardrails, the policies around those projects, and the utilization of AI in general, as it were. So we've got a lot of advisory focus from consulting perspective in those areas. And then from a managed service perspective, it's also about being able to continuously shine a light from a visibility perspective in those areas, and also make sure that things remain within those guardrails that we've defined from a governance perspective during the advisory activities and so on. So again, if I look at managed services in both of those areas, data and AI, we've got a managed data security and governance service and our managed AI security and governance services, both of which ultimately provide continuous visibility into key areas such as data identification, data classification, data loss prevention, AI utilization, AI policy violations, AI inventory management, which is something that a lot of organizations often struggle with. And then it's about making sure that all of that we've learned and we've understood from an asset perspective, and the importance of those and the relevance of those AI assets, as it were, those digital assets and that information. What does that look like from a resilience perspective? And making sure that we are covering that in our cyber resilience preparedness. So I mentioned to you earlier that continued investment in cyber resilience is key as we are seeing this shift. Like we said, the tsunamis of vulnerabilities. There's technologies that are available now to the good guys and the bad guys that are going to, like I say, unearth vulnerabilities much quicker. So not only do we need to be able to help people detect those things quicker and respond to the threats that are associated with them, but we need to be able to help people remediate those threats as well, right? We've discovered them and we're blocking them actively, but we've still got to fix all these things. So there's lots of different areas that we are ultimately working on in terms of the development of our capabilities in this area, but ultimately it follows that life cycle and that theme around cyber resilience that I've talked about, which is continued throughout a lot of our portfolio and cyber capabilities and offerings.
Thanks, Rob. Finally, as clients themselves go AI first and they start feeding data into models, putting AI into production, what does security around the data and AI lifecycle actually look like end to end?
This is an interesting one for me. I think this is, somebody like myself, I've been in cyber for over 30 years and I've seen a lot of change. And what we're seeing from an AI perspective is just another This is another wave of changes. And security is often, or security teams, and the things that we're trying to do are often looked at upon as blockers from a progression perspective. You know, if I put that into the analogy of a car, we're often labeled as the brakes, right? You know, we're telling everybody to slow down, or you can't do that kind of stuff, and so on. So I have got a different view on that. Obviously, I would have been a security professional, but by putting things like security governance and policies in place at the very start of these types of projects, and I mean the very start. So that governance layer has to run under everything that, you know, we're doing as an organization, from cloud and infrastructure to data and AI to, you know, all of those types of areas. So by putting those guardrails in at the very start, I like to turn that analogy around, some considerations that we are actually the airbags and the seat belts in this analogy. So we're actually the enablers that allows the vehicle or the business to move forward safely, in the knowledge that if there is an incident where the brakes can't help, as it were, they've still got some coverage, right? So if there's something that happens immediately, we've got the policies and standards in place that allow us to deal with that incident, but also fix the car, right? We can recover the business, we can get it back up and running. So we're not the brakes. we're the seatbelts, like I said, and the airbags to allow that vehicle to go forward safely. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It starts with the data. Fix the data issues first. Understand the who, the what, the where, the how about the data, and develop and apply those policies and those governance structures around that, and then monitor and maintain that view continuously so that you know that you'll remain compliant from a data perspective, you know where your data is, you know who's got access to it, etc., etc. Then you apply that to an AI governance model perspective. So it's not about the individuals now, but it's about AI agents, it's about AI tooling, it's about models. What data is that touching? Where is it being shared? Who's it shared with? How is it shared? Just getting that view, again, answer those simple questions about the AI projects and environment that you've got within your environment, the who's, the what's, the how's, and just provide that continuous visibility, as it were. Again, a lot of organizations struggle with that. Then design the AI functions and objectives. So here, this is where we're doing the security testing and validation that I've mentioned. For example, ensuring things are aligned to business objectives, remaining in governance, etc. Then there's the testing and operational readiness. Then there's the, you know, threat monitoring and red teaming and so on. And all the time, you've got to maintain that visibility and that knowledge around the who, the what, the where, the how, from a data and an AI perspective. And that is the key.
And actually, Rob's nailed it here. The short sentence that I can follow Rob's answer here is like, fix the data foundation and AI becomes an enabler, not a blocker. When it comes to us as a Bell integration, so we deliver that as a managed service end to end. So first we take you through the data transformation journey to get the provenance, integrity, and quality right, because basically you cannot trust a model built on a data you cannot vouch for. Then managed AI services, effectively we say, is an MDR for AI. So we guardrails against prompt injection, monitoring the model behavior the way we monitor endpoints. So we see what the AI is actually acting, what type of action that specific agentic AI is doing in your system, why is it doing that, what kind of data or data sources that agentic AI is doing. And also, we focus on the governance wrap that kills shadow AI in your environment. So the point here is that AI now is a critical asset class, monitored and governed as a service. So clients can go AI first with a confidence, not exposure. And also knowing what exactly AI is doing in the environment, having that peace in mind, knowing that there is an organization behind them, a team behind them, monitoring every single bit that AI agent or AI workflow is doing inside their organization.
Thank you both. And Rob, I really like your analogy of the car and talking about security being part of the safety system in the car rather than the brakes. I think that's a really good analogy. Well, thank you both for an interesting conversation all about cybersecurity and its relationship with AI, both from a positive as well as a potential threat side of things. And I think this topic's just going to carry on expanding further and further. And for anybody that wants to know more information, please go to the Bell integration website. There's much more information on there, much more help and assistance. And that's bell-integration.com. Once again, thank you, Belal, and thank you, Rob, for joining me today.